Which is better, the Samsung Galaxy A05s or the Samsung Galaxy A04s? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my comparison of the Galaxy A05s versus the Galaxy A04s. Now, as the names of these phones do imply, the Galaxy A05s is the successor to last year's Galaxy A04s. Now, going from one generation to another, there's a lot of really awesome improvements, and I'm looking forward to showing you all of those throughout this video. Now, as far as price and availability go for either of these two devices, it really depends on your region. Both of these phones are sold all around the world in different markets, so that is something worth keeping in mind. I personally bought these devices on eBay, and I will be linking to them in the video description. And the A04s was never officially launched in the US, so it was never on any carriers or anything like that. Now, you could use this phone with a US SIM card, but it was never officially sold through any of the carriers. And then so far, the A05s is also not sold through any US carriers, but it is possible that could change in the future. So the first thing is we're getting a larger display with the A05s compared to the A04s. So we're going from 6.5 inches to 6.7 inches. So I already thought the display with the A04s was big enough as it is, but the display has gotten even larger with the A05s. In addition to that, you've probably noticed the A05s's display is a bit brighter compared to the A04s, and both of these phones right now do have their brightness set at 100%. So we're getting a brighter display here, we're getting a larger display. Now, both displays are PLS IPS LCD, and they do both feature a 90Hz refresh rate. However, with the A05s, we're getting a 1080p display compared to 720p with the A04s. So great to see that we're getting a better resolution as well with the new version of the phone. In addition to that, we're getting a higher PPI with the A05s at 393 PPI compared to 270 PPI. And then both phones do feature 20:9 aspect ratios. And with the A05s, we're getting an 82.9% screen-to-body ratio compared to an 80.7% screen-to-body ratio with the A04s. So slightly smaller bezels with the A05s compared to its predecessor. Now, both phones do have a pretty similar design overall, though. When looking at the front panels, you can see both phones do have water drop notches up top. However, it is a little bit on the boxier side and less streamlined with the A05s compared to the A04s. And then both phones do feature slightly thicker bottom bezels. Now with the A05s, we have a 13 megapixel front-facing camera compared to a 5 megapixel front-facing camera with the A04s. So that is a nice improvement between generations here. And then also with the A05s, we're getting 128 gigabytes of storage compared to just half of that at 64 gigabytes with the A04s. Now both phones do feature microSD card expansion though, so it is at least nice that with either phone, you can offload photos and videos to free up some internal space. Now both of these devices do have fingerprint sensors on the power buttons, so we'll give that a try first with the A05s. We'll give that a try right now, and you can see it's very fast and responsive. Let's try that one more time. So that works great. And then we'll give the A04s a try. And we're also getting a very fast fingerprint sensor there. Try that again. It's very quick and accurate. So that's great. And then also both phones do support Face Unlock, which is another nice feature to have. So I do appreciate that we do have multiple methods here for accessing the devices. And then with both of these phones, we are getting Face Unlock, so I do appreciate that we have multiple methods for getting into them. Now, unfortunately, neither of these two phones have wireless charging, which is a bit disappointing, but something that I don't typically expect to find with phones in this very low-end segment. Now, taking a look at the cameras on the back of the two phones, we have a similar configuration, as both phones do have triple camera setups. And then both phones do have a 50 megapixel main camera, 2 megapixel depth sensing cameras, and 2 megapixel macro cameras for close-up images. And then both phones also support 1080p video recording for the front and rear cameras, and then they also both support portrait mode for the rear and front cameras as well. Now here's how things look on the camera apps on both devices. So first I want to take a photo of this plant with both phones, and then here's how it looks with the A05s versus the A04s. So it looks like we are getting a bit of a crisper look here to the photos compared to the A04s. so I'm guessing that we are getting a better quality camera sensor this time around. Then from there, we can go over to portrait mode to get those nice blurred out backgrounds that I know that people are a big fan of. We can also flip around to the front-facing cameras in both phones and take portrait selfies. We can also take standard selfies as well, and if you want to go to this mode here, it crops out a little bit for a group selfie, which is nice. It does look like side by side here, the group selfie mode with the A05s does fit a little bit more into a single frame compared to the A04s. And then heading over to the More tab on both phones, there's a lot of different options here, but one of them is the macro camera mode. So with macro mode, you can get very close up and have things be in really good detail, just like that. So that's a great feature to have as well. So I do appreciate that even though these are both very low-end phones from Samsung, we're still getting a lot of different camera features. Now, another major difference between these two devices is the processor that we're getting here with the two phones and also the amount of RAM. So the first thing is, with the A05s, we're getting 6 gigabytes of RAM compared to 4 gigabytes of RAM with the A04s. So that's quite an increase. And then also with the A05s, we're getting the Qualcomm Snapdragon 680 processor compared to the Samsung Exynos 850 processor with the A04s. And then both of these phones are limited to just 4G LTE, so neither of the two devices support 5G. Now at this point in 2023, I do feel like you should try to get a phone that does support 5G, considering that that is the direction things are moving, and if you're going to go through all the time and effort of getting a brand new smartphone, you may as well get one that does support your carrier's latest and greatest network. But at the same time, you can certainly still get by with just 4G LTE. So it really depends on your personal preference on if that is important to you. But I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6 on both phones, and you can see the results of the test right here, and we definitely are getting some very solid performance increases with the Galaxy A05s. You can see we're getting nearly double the single core score, and the multi-core score is quite a bit higher as well. So those increased scores do reflect upon what I've experienced with the Galaxy A05s. This phone is definitely a lot faster than the A04s. In fact, in many situations, the A04s can be very frustrating with it having a lot of random slowdowns, and it really isn't a fast phone at all. But this time around, with the A05s, this phone actually performs really decent. So I'm glad to see that we're getting a better processor and more RAM this time around, and it has made a difference. Now both phones do feature 5,000 mAh internal batteries. However, another nice improvement with the A05s is that it can recharge at up to 25 watts as far as the charging speed goes, but the Galaxy A04s is limited at 15 watt fast charging. So the fact that the A05s can charge a lot faster especially makes a big difference because the batteries are so large on the two phones. So if you have a big battery, but you can recharge it very quickly, then that does ease some potential frustrations of having to stare at your phone all day waiting for it to recharge. Now, neither of these two phones do have NFC, which is a bit disappointing. I am a big fan of that feature. I do like to use tap and pay with my smartphone, so unfortunately we're not getting that here with the A05s or A04s. And then the A05s does ship with Android 13 out of the box, and the A04s has since been updated to Android 13. So it is nice that we're getting a relatively new version of Android from Samsung. However, as of the time of me recording this video, Android 14 has launched. So I'm not sure when these phones are going to be getting that update, but just know that this is the current software situation. Now taking a closer look at the hardware of the two devices. They are both made of plastic, besides the displays, which are made of glass. But we are getting some big changes this time around with the A05s. The first thing is that this phone is a bit boxier compared to its predecessor, which is more rounded. That doesn't really bother me at all, and actually makes the phone look really cool. And then also we're getting a more matte finish here with a wavy look to it on the A05s compared to the A04s, which has a glossy finish. Now I don't like this glossy finish because, as you can see, it picks up a lot of fingerprints compared to the A05s, which barely picks up any at all. But it really comes down to your personal preference on the materials, and if you are using either of the two phones with a case, then I suppose whether it's glossy or matte finish on the back doesn't matter a ton. But with the two devices, we're getting triple camera setups with the flash and the Samsung logos in the back, and that's pretty much it. But I hope you enjoyed my comparison of the Samsung Galaxy A05s versus the Samsung Galaxy A04s. Definitely let me know what you think and which phone of the two you prefer. But this is Kevin here, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care and have a great rest of your day.